Keep saying good morning. It's a party, y'all. It's a tea party. And there's tea, there's sweet tea, unsweetened tea, and Russian tea. The Russian tea you have to make yourself. A couple of spoons of the mix that's in the little container right there. And if you like a little extra sweet hot, get you a spoonful of those red hots. Put them in your hot tea. Upon request, I will fill the glass with ice for your sweet tea or your unsweet tea. I want to ask Ms. Dorothy Davis if she will please stand. Ms. Davis is president of the Shalom Zone, and that's in this particular, in the Ferry Street District area. And what her mission is to make the village one, to make the village one, to make the village one, so that we all pull together to bring Ferry Street back to the prosperity that we once had. So Ms. Davis, thank you for the refreshments. I made the sweet part, the tea cakes, and Ms. Davis made the rest of the refreshments. So at this point, are there comments from anyone in the audience? Questions? Baby girl, can we have one more song and then a blessing? You'll give us another one. Yes. Take your time. Silent trees bear strange fruit, little leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swaying in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar tree. Sing of the gallant sound, the twisted wind and the twisted mouth. I'm sorry. Take your time. Take your time. It's okay. You know the words, right? Okay. Start something else. Look at me. Look at me. I am changing, trying every way I can. I am changing. I'll be better than I am. I'm trying to find a way to understand, but I need you, I need you, I need a hand. I am changing, seeing everything so clear. I am changing.
That's why I need you. I need a hand. All my life I've been a fool who said I can do it all alone. How many dark nights how many good friends have already lost? And how many dark nights have I known? Walking down that wrong road, there was nothing I could find. All those years of darkness can make a person blind, but now I can see I am changing, trying every way I can. I am changing. I'll be better than I am, but I need a friend to help me start over again. That's why I need you. I need a hand. All of my life I've been a fool who said I can do it all alone. How many good friends have already lost? And how many dark nights have I known? Walking down that wrong road, there was nothing I could find. All those years of darkness can make a person blind, but now I can see I am changing, trying every way I can. I am changing. I'll be better than I am, but I need a friend to help me start over again. Yes, they'll be just fine. I know it's gonna work out this time, 'cause this time I am. This time I am getting my life together now. I'm changing. Yes, I know how. I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna leave my past behind. I've changed my life. I make a vow, things gonna stop me now.
Nothing's gonna stop us now. Scott Ford Midwife House will come to fruition. So at this time, what happened? Mary Davis? This is Davis sisters, except they're not sisters. Mary Davis is my other child. She's my right hand and my left hand, and she's my nurse. God has blessed me with wonderful friends who come through for me, come and work with me, come and play with me. And I want to thank all my friends who came. I want to thank Sister for that wonderful music.
play that piece, I have the audience to participate. And the reason why I have the audience to participate, because there's spirit in the music, because you know all it comes from God anyway. It's just the intent behind it. So I'm going to play it again, if you don't mind. And I want you to sing whatever part you're familiar with, if it's beginning, if it's the refrain or whatever. Because see, I feed off on that. And we go for as long as the Spirit will lead us to do it. Can we agree to do that? We can do that? Okay, I'm going to do it again. You better sing too. One more time. That's what music is. That's why we do what we do when we praise God the way we do, because we're giving back what is given to us. And it's only fair that we do that and return it with something even more beautiful. That's what we do. That's why I love that piece, because it's so pure. It's so real. It's really that beautiful. Now, I don't know what's going to come next in the program, but I'm going to step back and let the mistress of ceremonies continue. Thank you. Thank
you. You know, in the village, we just ask whomever we need to have to make it work. And so my niece came to help me. And our person to do the invocation is not here. So I've pressed upon her if she would ask the Lord to bless us.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
May we pray? Lord, thank you for allowing us to gather in honor of our ancestors. Thank you for the blessing in allowing us to share the growth and prosperity of the Scott Ford Project. Lord, continue to bless our comings and goings during this time of test.
Yes.
And allow us to grow and look forward to meeting you. In Jesus' name I pray. We all pray. Amen.
Amen.
You know, as it is, we have invited a lot of people to participate with us, and we just kind of spaced our chairs out so that we would have this. Back in the day, when I was a child, and some of my little younger friends say way back in the day, when you were a child, we would see the senior people, the older people, get all dressed up. They had on their gloves and their hats and their heels and their purses that matched to go to the tea to raise money for whatever event that the village needed to raise money for. And so we thought we'd have a vintage tea to represent it. Now COVID has thrown a kink in all of our activities, so we have to space out, allow less people to participate with us. But you know, God is always good. And it will happen.
Yes.
We will be able to do what it is we need to do. The Scott Ford Project is a very important piece of my life in these last 5 years, since September 2015. For 3 of those years, my birthday is September the 16th. And it would fall that on the 16th, my birthday, the Scott Ford process began. And so I would celebrate my birthday at the festival in the street, on Cohee Street, in front of the Scott Ford houses. And it was special to me. And so my family began to understand that that's where I'm going to be. So welcome to the Scott Ford Vintage Tea Party. And as Sister Olubula said, it's a spirit in this room, and it's a positive spirit. One of the things the pandemic has taught us is that we are a creative nation. We can communicate and get our message out in all of these new technological ways. So we have some people with us by Zoom. Some people are on the phone listening to us. And so we are few here, but we are many across the state and across the nation. We understand that so many people are just zoomed out. Do we have any zoomed out people in the room? Zoomed out. And so I appreciate all you Zoomers who came in to Zoom with us. And I appreciate even more those of you who trusted us enough to come out and be an audience for our tea. When we're able to host you in person, to host a bigger group in person, we want to welcome you back. We want to have face-to-face interaction with you. We want to understand that how important it is for us that we leave a positive legacy for our children. So we can answer the question with the Scott Ford House. Grandma, what did y'all do? They see all these statues and big museums and small museums, i.e. the Eudora Welty Museum, and those museums in the city of Jackson. And when they say, what did y'all do? Other than Smith Robertson, which is specifically designated to tell our story, there is the Medgar Evers home, and the Medgar Evers home tells about a tragedy. So the tragedy of Medgar's death overshadows the dynamic work he did as a field secretary. So most of the time, when there's a museum or something that's honoring African Americans, it's negative. Not the Scott Ford House. I don't know how many of you were delivered by a midwife. I don't know how many of you had older sisters, or your mother and father, or perhaps your grandmother or your great aunt was a midwife. Before we were, black folks were allowed opportunity to go to the hospital and have our babies. We called the midwife. And the midwife did more than just catch the babies. The midwife helped the mother learn how to take care of her baby, how to take care of her house so that the baby would be safe and healthy. So we celebrate that. The women and the gentlemen at Scott Ford houses, 136 and 138 East Cohee Street, were entrepreneurs. So that's a lesson that we can teach our children. Even back in the day, black people were productive, and they managed to make sure that we all thrived. So today, We celebrate them. We celebrate a black family who knew the importance of the vote because they worked with the NAACP to get people voting, registered, because they moved about the community inconspicuously. So they have a lot for us to understand and share. The Scott Ford Midwife Museum will present a positive portrait to our children. And we want to share the development of the Scott Ford Midwife House complex. Can you believe in the heart of the city there was a pigsty in the backyard, a chicken coop, a big garden, so that when the midwife got paid with a chicken, she was paid with a chicken. But she also had her own vegetable garden, and she sold the vegetables. Of course, she gave vegetables and chickens to mothers who could not afford to pay her. So the village reaches out and pulls in, and we support that. And we thank you so much for coming to be a part of this process. We thank you for your financial help now and in the future. So as the Midwife House Museum complex gets developed, we want to see you there. If any one of you knows a midwife, has a midwife in your family, was delivered by a midwife, and willing to share your birth certificate, your information, we need it. We needed to grow our process. We needed to make our Midwife House Museum complex a reality. And so I welcome you this evening. I thank you for your presence, and I ask that God bless our process. With that, I would like to bring my child. Terrence, I got another one. We've known each other for a little while, and one of my children was saying, "Mom, so-and-so and so-and-so," and he's doing, it's the first time I've seen you and known you a long time, but that's the first time I heard your children with you. I got a lot of them. Some I had and some I didn't. But this one, I guess I'll give her back to her proper mother. This musical genius to my left, Miss Adiola Braxton, will bring us beautiful music.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost done. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost done. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost done. A long way from home. A long way from home. True believers a long way from home.
Can't get up, can't get up. Has abundant talent. And the village is willing to share this talent with us. At this time, I want to give Dr. Harrison time to enter the room. So what we'll do is, we'll ask Brigitte if she'll give us some marching music for.
Marching?
Not marching music, some music to give Dr. Harrison time to
Yes,
get settled.
That was vocalized by Sergei Rachmaninoff. It's originally a vocal piece piece for mezzo soprano or soprano. It's a lovely piece. You know, vocalese is what you do to warm up your voice before you begin to sing. And it's sung with just one syllable or one vowel, which is ah. And you take it up and down and all around like you've heard, I hope. But that is to open up the singer to prepare for what they're doing. But it's a really beautiful piece. Mm-hmm. And it's a piece I play ever so often when I try to get my daughter to sing. But and she does. But it's originally, you would normally hear it from violin, or you hear it in an orchestra setting. But this was transcribed for cello and piano. But I decided I think that may have been appropriate for this occasion.
The brainchild of Dr. Appleton Harrison and a couple of other people, but Dr. Harrison is the one who has continued the process of saving the Scott Ford House. So at this time, I'd like to give her an opportunity to give us a Scott Ford moment.
Is there anyone who does not have a Scott Ford newsletter? I could make an excuse for being late. I can take it off, they say, since you work so hard to find it. But I really don't have an excuse. My children will tell you it's a name card for me, I guess. But I did want to show you the houses for some of you who have not seen this picture. So we struggled to kind of get them in a place where they wouldn't fall down, because this was a donation to the Scott Ford Project early on when I was at a reception where they had bidding going on. And I bid, and then my partner decided it was time to go. And I said, well, I'm not ready to go. And then everybody else started leaving. So I ran back to bid on this. And then somebody came along and outbid me. And then the lady decided she was going to donate it to Scott Ford. So it's ours, and it's by a rising artist. I try to say his name, I get it wrong, but it's William Goodman. He's supposed to be a rising artist. I'll put it here, and then I'll make my brief comments. Okay. But we're very proud of that, and I didn't want to get it all messed up. It is a little torn behind though. So good evening, everybody. Hello. Welcome to the Scott Ford's first virtual tea party. I am here to help raise money to develop 136 and 138 East Cohee Street as a tourist site. And these are the houses there. I would like to commemorate those who have organized this event. All events don't have to have a crowd. It just has to have the right people who are interested in the project, and we will make it happen. So that's our challenge. These houses were lived in by a granny midwife, according to archives and history. And it's the only house in the state of Mississippi that we know of that has been documented where a midwife lived. So it is a Mississippi landmark, and we think that in time to come, it will become a national landmark. It just takes us working very hard to continue to interpret it and to tell its story. Not only does it represent the granny midwife who lived there was Virginia Scott Ford. And one of the things I was doing in the interim was talking to our scholar, who I thought said yesterday he had found her listed among those who had been certified. But he said that was not quite the case, so we have to do a lot more work. She died, unfortunately, in 1928. And the picture that he was referring to was 1970, he said. I said, well, unfortunate. But we think actually that she could have been certified because they started the certifications in 1921. And then upwardly mobile, I think this family would have worked to have her certified. So the site honors not only Virginia Scott Ford, but many others who were delivered by midwives. And some of you may not know this. Congressman Benny Thompson, Misty Blue blues singer Dorothy Moore, and of course Tommy Green, who was our guest speaker last night, and she did a wonderful job of educating us on things we really did not know about Mississippi in the county around here. And of course, Dr. William Woods of Tougaloo. He has documented his story of having been delivered by midwives. And maybe some of you were delivered by a midwife and you have just not asked your parents about it, or there's a midwife in your family. But that's what has to happen. These granny midwives represent approximately 360 years of medical service to the African American community, as well as the white community, we were told last night. Some of us already knew that, but it was documented by a judge that their granny midwife delivered white babies, and she had the certificate to prove it. So we can put that story to rest when you have the certificate to prove it, saying this was a white child. It really makes our work worthwhile. So the whole point about these houses representing the symbiotic racial history of Mississippi and America is true, according to the documents that we heard about last night. And a symbiotic relationship is where everybody depends on somebody else for their well-being. And what she was demonstrating last night, really, and so I put that word back in my presentation about symbiotic because some people didn't think that was the case. I said, yes, we depended on, and we still do. That's what America is all about. Listen and imagine the granny midwife as I paraphrase Margaret Walker's For My People. Granny midwives sang their slave songs, prayed their prayers nightly to an unknown God, bowed humbly to an unseen power. Dragged along, never gaining, never reaping, and never knowing, and never understanding the forces of change that caused their demise. But not the demise of the cause, because it was for my people that the granny midwife worked for those who stood on society's bottom step of the social and economic ladder. The slave, the poor, the day worker, the sharecropper, the sawmill worker, the unemployed, and the homeless in Mississippi society from 1619 to the 1980s. Especially was this the case after the Civil War and in Jim Crow, Mississippi. So in welcoming you, I encourage you to have a good time while you think about your Mississippi midwife stories, your photographs, artifacts that would be helpful in telling this story. Hopefully you will later decide to donate them and some funds, some money to help build part of your family legacy at the Scott Ford Midwife House. Enjoy the tea while you think about how you can help finance this museum. And so I put in my narrative, let's get a teacup. I don't see the teacups. we need to get a teacup and toast to ourselves and to Miss Ada and her committee for this first virtual tea party. So let's pretend we have our tea and we're going to toast Miss Ada. Come on up and be toasted. Because she pushed along without all of the support she should have had. Now, how do we do the toast?
You're here.
Here, here.
Here,
There, here. Down there. Right next to people's funeral home.
Okay, thank you. All right.
You know, as I said, the village is just totally in love with wonderful, talented people. And at this time, we have the pleasure, the honor of having Dr. Janet Neal Vincent, who believes in Scott Ford, who teaches the story of Scott Ford in such a delightful, dramatic way. Dr. Janet Neal Vincent. One woman show.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.
It seems that I got up here quickly. I want us to go back in time. We are here in a pandemic, and it seems to me that the pandemic is more than the pandemic in reference to all that we are bombarded with since we heard about the pandemic. It seems like with the voting situation, that is truly a pandemic for me. And I don't know how you may feel, but I'm very excited that the days are running away so that we can get on with what we need to regarding the damage that has happened here in America. And so I don't know why I started talking on that, but I believe that it definitely relates to the granny midwives and all of our plight wrapped up with the granny midwives. So I want us to take that in stride as we look here at the number of babies who have come through the hands of the granny midwives, and the number of babies who were over there in Africa before we left our homeland and were dragged over here against our will. And so now I believe we can see how the struggle is meshing with the granny midwives and the babies. Because after all, we don't even know our homeland because we were dragged away. That is not even part of what I was going to say, but I'm so happy that I have said it because it seems to fit. I am a captured female slave who sailed from my African homeland 400 years ago to a vast, unknown world. This community we call America. I have comforted many mothers in their birth pains and have caught many babies from their wombs. My soul soul is instilled in the hearts of generations of midwives who have delivered thousands of babies throughout America, despite chains, shackles, discrimination, and brutality against them. They were granted grand midwives in slave quarters and communities. Granted midwives who have caused us to be where we are now because of their spirits, having talked to us even when we did not know they were speaking to us. There's a baby on the way. Give the mother a little flower. Don't know the minute nor the hour. Baby's coming sometime today. Come, mother, with herbal tea. Relieve her pains with ginger root. Clap your hands and kick your boot. Mother's come as calm can be. Born in 1818, Biddy Mason had multiple slave masters in South Carolina, Georgia, and Mississippi. When she was 18, Robert Smith made her a wedding gift to his bride in Hancock County, Mississippi. The story goes that Biddy Mason's 3 children, her 3 daughters, were fathered by Smith. Nevertheless, when she was 47, Biddy had worked very hard on Smith's plantation, 29 years. Then in 1847, the converted Mormon Smith family and their slaves headed to Salt Lake City, Utah. On this 6-month journey, Biddy had to walk the entire way, carrying her baby Harriet on her back as she tended the sheep and took care of the Smith family. Well, they settled there in Utah for a while, and then over time, they went to San Bernardino, California. At that time, Biddy and the other slaves did not know that they were already free once they touched California soil. So they labored an additional 5 years under Smith. And then in 1865, Biddy and the slaves went to a Los Angeles court and won their freedom. So freedom for us is always bought with a price. Here we have Biddy Mason laboring with no pay, but a dedicated worker in all that she was exposed to, plantation style. After she was freed, she was earning $2.50 a day, which was far greater than the average rate of pay at 80 cents. And she did that because she was under the leadership of the prominent Dr. John Griffin there in California. Biddy was his nurse and midwife, crossing race and color lines. She was a very bright, prosperous lady. She was the co-founder of the first AME church in Los Angeles. She established herself, though she could not read and she could not write, as a real estate entrepreneur and philanthropist. She learned Spanish. She educated her 3 children. She opened her home quite often as a refuge for the needy. When she died, she left her children $300,000, which is equivalent to $7 million today. Her philosophy was, if you keep your hand closed, nothing good can come of it. The open hand is blessed, for it brings abundance. It gives abundance, even as it receives. Over half a century later, sanitary science became obsessed with cleanliness. And there were stumbling blocks that were put in the path of the African American midwife. The white male went abroad and educated himself in obstetrics for the purpose of coming back to America to trash the granny midwife as a means of economic gains and channeling all of the babies into the hospitals. So over time, that's exactly what took place. But this has not stopped the African American midwife, because ancestry keeps calling her. And just as ancestry worked on Biddy Mason, so is ancestry working on Dr. Alfredine Harrison. I remember I was in a conversation with her several years ago, and she was talking about giving it up. And I just could not imagine, maybe the ancestors were working on me at the time as we were talking, but I could not imagine her giving it up, because this project is so significant for our well-being. So there was no way that I was going to say to her, oh yes, you're right, just give it up, just give it up. Because I know when there are backlashes, just as they were with the granny midwives, they come upon us, whoever we are. And so when we give in to them, we don't get to the end of the tunnel. We just start doing something else and backsliding and never making it to prosperity, as was the case with Biddy Mason. Not only it was not enough for the white physician to strive to trash the granny midwife, but there was an act, a Shepherd-Towner Act, that ruined her career, whoever she was. Because Felix Underwood, who was the director of the Mississippi Board of Health, was one of the main proponents who was complaining about the work that the midwives were doing. And the main thing that he was talking about along with the people who were part of his regime, was cleanliness, or the lack of it, but nothing about what he had learned from the African American midwife. And if you were to go to look at some of the medical journals, start reading in those, you will see comments that folks like Felix Underwood have made against the contributions of the African American midwife. Why is it difficult then to find articles quickly about the contributions of the African American midwife? Because it was a scheme to push her contributions out so that the physician could channel those babies in the hospitals and reap the money. And then, after they trashed the African American midwife, they brought on the young white female and taught her midwifery. So this is no accident where we are now in this country. We have always had to fight. We have always had to struggle. And so if we give up, we will not see the crown. That is what the white male has known all our lives and before our lives, which is why he dragged us over here, because he saw that we were a productive people at home.
Yes.
Obviously, if I'm looking for somebody to come and build something for me, I'm not going to go to the worst people. I'm going where the people are doing what I think they can do for me. And so that has been the game all our lives. Now where we are is to continue to strive as we deal with the Scott Ford Foundation, those two houses over there on Cohee Street. And we continue to think about Virginia Scott Ford and her family, prominent citizens here in Jackson. And we think about the Farrar Street Historic District and how many years we have been struggling to restore it to its rightful home. But we cannot afford to give up. That should never be part of our vocabulary, though we struggle with that quite often. But it should never be part of our vocabulary to run out of the game, because as soon as we do that, we have to start all back over, working to get to where we are trying to go. So our here ancestry, continuously speaking, just as this African American midwife of ancient days, she was a powerful woman, and she knew what it took to help us to come forth and to practice the love within the African diaspora, to bring it all the way over here to America, running the risk of not even knowing our people back home, but at the same time recognizing from whence we came. So this African American midwife carries her black bag, like that black bag I left over there on the seat. And within the bag, no matter what the health professional said, Felix Underwood and the others, she continued with her herbs, the different types of objects that were needed, like the scissors and the cloth, to work with the mother, with her size, so that there would be the healing process. And then we come to understand the voices in the village. We understand the proverb, it takes a village, which was not something that Hillary Clinton got started, as you know. The African American proverb has been there forever. It's just something she quoted. And so we understand here what the village is all about. As I have been studying these midwives around here in Jackson, I found out that Nancy Hill, who was a prominent jack of all trades, could do all kinds of things, go into the courtroom and defend people not even having a degree. And she would win their cases. That was back around 1946 when she was on the scene. This was a woman who smoked a pipe. A woman who had a rifle in her hand. And there's a postcard that shows what I'm talking about. This was a woman who did not take any junk. And if she disagreed working with blacks and white, because she brought forth a lot of white babies, as folks had left here because of the yellow fever epidemic, she took those children in and she healed them, you see. So standing up for what is right is the only thing that's going to win. And that's the reason why the African American midwife has that lending ear, her and her folks, to Africa, when many don't know that those voices are speaking to them. Finally, do you realize that there was a professor, a black professor from the United States, who went back to Africa, hearing the call of ancestry, got over there and stayed because they were telling that person to come back home.
Yes.
And so this project is very strong. And we have to just take our hats off to Dr. Alfredine Harrison, the president of this outfit, Miss Ada Robinson, who is side by side with her, and all of the rest of the ones who have come forth, Dr. Robert Smith, the MD, and many others. Some have closed their eyes thinking about this project, but they keep saying, my sister, you must continue. Let's give her a hand.